Now, if there were two words to sum up my feelings towards the iPhone 15 Pro, those two words would be pretty good. Now, the reason why I say that the 15 Pro has been pretty good is because I'm not going to sugarcoat anything. It's basically the same phone as the iPhone 14 Pro with slightly nice upgrades. It's upgraded to USB-C, it has a nice titanium finish that makes the phone lighter, and it has the new action button, which isn't a game changer, but again, it's pretty good. And I'm going to be honest, based on my day-to-day experience with the iPhone 15 Pro, it has yet to give me any true flaws to where I could say it's not worth buying. That's why in this video, I will be giving you guys my experience with the 15 Pro and helping you decide whether or not it's actually worth buying. Now, the first thing that I wanted to cover is something that'll make or break your experience with the 15 Pro, and that's the battery. And I've tested out how long my 15 Pro lasts with high usage, and during my time of using it, I would get about 6 to 7 hours of screen time a day, and even though that's pretty good usage, it didn't stop my 15 Pro from lasting all day. On average, I would be able to end my day with about 25% worth of battery, which is pretty impressive since I was using power-heavy apps like social media and games. I would also have much heavier work days with my 15 Pro, like whenever I got over 9 hours doing things like scripting at work or filming multiple videos. The Pro also supports 29 watt fast charging, which I had minimal problems with. It charges pretty fast, 75% in 55 minutes, but most of the time I charge it overnight, so it really didn't matter. But at the end of the day, I can't always be content. We all know that Apple has the resources to provide us with an iPhone that supports 45 watt fast charging, which is much more fitting for a phone of this price. And when it comes to usage, I was never the type of person to cut any corners to save battery, and my iPhone had all day battery life, so most of the time I was charging it overnight. And during my time of using the Pro, I had 5G on, my brightness was on manual and always on medium to high with always on display on, and I'm using every power heavy app as much as I can. And again, I only use power saving mode a couple of times, meaning that if you are someone who mostly charges your phone overnight, you should be good no matter how much you use your phone. Now, the next thing that I wanted to touch on when it comes to the 15 Pro is the first thing that you see and feel, and that's design and build quality. Now, the iPhone has always been pretty good in both of these categories, and I'd be lying if I said that the 15 Pro doesn't deliver. The 15 Pro has this very rounded frame at a POV when you hold it. It's very boxy, just like the iPhone 5 and 5S, and the iPhone's frame fits in my hand very well. I'm holding my phone for hours on a day-to-day basis, so it really helps to have a phone that's easy to carry around. The 15 Pro also had a pretty nice weight to it. It weighs in at 187 grams compared to last year's 206 grams, which is significantly lighter than the 14 Pro. Personally, I like when my phones have a pretty good weight to them. It really adds to its premium feel, and I feel like the 15 Pro couldn't have been any better. And now when it comes to aesthetics, the Pro has really mastered that Apple clean yet simple type of style. The buttons and ports were in the right places, the phone was big enough to add to the experience, and even using it with a case, the iPhone has always had aesthetically nice cases that become the true identity of your iPhone, so you can't go wrong with either. Now, looking at display, the 15 Pro has a 6.1-inch Super Retina XDR display that is miles ahead of any phone in this price range. The pill-shaped notch isn't the greatest in terms of spacing when watching videos, but whenever using it regularly, I found the whole aesthetic to be favorable compared to the old school notch. Everything on the display felt very smooth, and I think that the 15 Pro has really mastered the balance between accuracy, sharpness, and the feeling of quality. And as far as durability, the Pro has ceramic shield on the display, which Apple claims is made of ceramic nanocrystals that resist damage. Now, durability isn't the only thing that's good about the display. It's very sharp, punchy, and premium when it comes to colors, but it knows not to overdo it. The brightness is the same as last year's 14 Pro. If you're outside with the 15 Pro, it can reach up to 2000 nits of peak brightness. There are many extremely sunny days where I live at, and I still didn't feel the need to max it out since the brightness was so good. Arguably, my favorite thing about the display was the 120Hz refresh rate that Apple calls ProMotion. It complemented iOS so well, and I was very surprised that it was able to be fast and smooth at the same time. Watching movies and content on this phone is amazing. The dual speakers creates that immersive experience when it comes to sound, and the speakers are extremely loud with really good quality. Now, the last thing that I wanted to touch on when it comes to the display is Face ID. Now, Face ID is so good. I used Face ID at night in rooms with the worst lighting, and it was pretty much reliable every single time. But I'm not gonna lie, picking up your phone to unlock it can get annoying, and I do wish that there was a fingerprint sensor. Now, the dynamic island is something that many people on the 15 Pro don't really care about, and based on my experience with it, I would say that it's helpful, but didn't really live up to the hype. The only thing that I use it for is music and sometimes the GPS, but all of its other functionalities like the timer or caller information can be clocked on my Apple Watch, which makes it that much more meaningless. But besides my opinions on the idea of the dynamic island, it worked very well and I didn't get any hiccups with it, and overall, it's still a nice addition. Now, before I discuss camera, I want to go over some problems that I dealt with in my 1 week of using the iPhone 15 Pro. Now, the first problem with my 15 Pro was a very personal problem that a lot of people who have multiple phones face, and that's the wireless SIM card problem. Now, as you guys know, I change phones very often. I change between Androids and iPhones, so it's always helpful to pop out my SIM card and put it in a new phone. But the problem is that for some reason, most phone companies aren't really equipped to make this process as smooth as possible. It takes way too long. I get a lot of failed tries, and a lot of times I have to call the company to make it work. And now the last problem that I faced and was very annoyed with when it comes to the 15 Pro was the camera focus. Now, I shoot a majority of my videos on my iPhone, but just like the 14 Pro, I've been very annoyed with the 15 Pro when it comes to shooting videos. Like whenever I'm shooting a phone, I try to show off the sides, and for some reason, the 15 Pro cannot focus on it. So a lot of times I just end up using my 12 Pro instead. Now, moving on to camera, the 15 Pro provides an amazing system. It has a 48 megapixel main camera with a 12 megapixel ultra wide and a 12 megapixel telephoto camera that is pretty much great in most aspects. Now, the iPhone has always been the most realistic in terms of color. Like the colors are always toned down, and you can tell that the photos aren't heavily processed. And I can say the same thing about night mode photos. They are very good. I love how it brightens up everything in the phone so that any subject is not only clear to see, but also very clean. The Pro zoom photos are pretty good as well. I found the ultra wide photos to be acceptable, but not as great. But as soon as you zoom in more, the pictures add much more detail. Selfies on the 15 Pro were the best in the smartphone market. I love how it handles my skin tone. I love how it looks realistic while also adjusting little details. And I've always been a fan of iPhone selfies, and the 15 Pro knocks it out the park. Now, the videos on the 15 Pro were amazing. Despite the minor problem that I mentioned earlier, there were many things that caught my attention. But overall, the clean cut quality stood out the most. You can shoot videos up to 4K. It looks really good, and even though it takes up the most space, I think the quality is that much worth it. The pans were very solid. Stabilization was smooth along with brightness and contrast. And the sharpening is still at its peak. And I want to give you guys some of my random footage that I was able to capture with my 15 Pro. And alright you guys, that's it for my review on the iPhone 15 Pro. It's a pretty good iPhone that I feel many people are on the fence about, but honestly, I think it's worth it. It has a great display, pretty good software so far, a good camera, and many other things that can be looked at from many different perspectives. But overall, I think that it's a pretty good iPhone, but you won't be wrong if you go with the 14 Pro as well. And let me know down in the comments, would you buy the iPhone 15 Pro right now, or would you wait another year? Let me know. And again, I want to thank you guys for watching today's video, and I'm going to see you guys on the next one. Peace.